Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to the webinar, Tai Ji Men, Citizen Diplomacy for Peace and Justice. I'm Alessandro Micarelli, London-based attorney and chairman of the European Federation for Freedom of Belief. Welcome to this new webinar on the case of Tai Ji Men. Today, we celebrate the International Day on Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. And we're very happy to celebrate this special day instituted by the United Nations in 2018 and first celebrated the following year, 2019, recalling the case involving Tai Ji Men in Taiwan. We've been holding a number of seminars, webinars, conferences, and meetings about the case of Tai Ji Men. For those who are not familiar with the Tai Ji Men case, I strongly invite you to stay with us today, and you will be listening to a number of presentations and testimonies from members of Tai Ji Men. And for a more extensive background of the case, I invite you to have a look at the Bitter Winter, Human Rights Without Frontiers, and other websites that very abundantly report about the Tai Ji Men case, which has been a very long case, which lasted over 25 years now. Tai Ji Men is a group founded by Dr. Ong in Taiwan, and it's basically a Qigong Academy. They are a very peaceful group advocating love, peace, freedom, and conscience for everyone. They've been praised for a very long time in Taiwan and abroad by also presidents of Taiwan and officials of that country. Unfortunately, back in 1996, the Tai Ji Men case, as we now call it, started as a tax case. I'm not going deep into this, into the specifics of the case, as this is not my role today. But I can tell you that we now have a video. After the video, we have two different panels, one panel of experts and scholars, and one panel composed of members of Tai Ji Men called the Dizi. And then we will have some conclusions and more videos. Let's please start with the first video called The Unbreakable Bonds. Please, let's watch it together.
Unbreakable Bonds, Episode 5. Even with solid facts and a strong defense team, the media's widespread defamation was unforgiving. The judicial proceedings remained a rocky journey. The first judge, Chen, was rational and polite. After careful review of the documents, he soon discovered that many of the Self-Help Association questionnaires were falsified. Judge Chen asked the Self-Help Association attorneys to recollect their documents within 3 weeks, and to provide the name and signature of each complainant. But from the beginning to the end, there was no so-called list of informants. The Dizi were delighted that the judge was willing to let the evidence speak for itself. However, Judge Chen was soon reassigned elsewhere. When the second judge was appointed to the case, he never summoned a court session for the entire year and a half. Dr. Hong and his Dizi never had a chance to meet the second judge before his transfer. Although the third and fourth judges had intended to properly review the case, they were transferred only after a few court sessions. The fifth judge was a young judge named Chao Ziyong, with a name similar to Chao Tsulung, a legendary general in the Three Kingdoms. Judge Chao possessed the same fearless personality. False dramas were repeatedly staged by the media. Inevitably, Tai Ji Men was being portrayed as a wicked money-grubbing religious organization. During the initial hearing, Judge Chao had a critical and skeptical demeanor. He was harsh towards Dr. Hong and his Dizi. Fortunately, at that time, Taiwan's Shilin District Court started to conduct a test trial of cross-examination. Judge Chao believed cross-examination could help in the discovery of the truth, so he decided to use the new procedure in this case. At last, the truth was revealed. Initially, after cross-examination, Judge Chow would shout angrily at the prosecutor.
This witness's testimony can't be used. You must find other witnesses to support your claim.
Towards the end, the Self-Help Association had to exaggerate its lies. The head of the Self-Help Association, for example, claimed to have donated 30 million new Taiwan dollars to Tai Ji Men. The judge exposed his lie in court. Finally, the vice president of the Self-Help Association admitted that the surveys were forged. She falsely claimed her sons, relatives, and friends were dizzy and sought 3.3 million new Taiwan dollars in compensation. Following the discovery of inconsistencies in the cash flows through investigation, a person lied about his $2 million being taken from his drawer. After these bogus statements were exposed, Judge Chow's attitude toward Dr. Hong and his Dizi softened. When she heard the lies told in court by the members of the Self-Help Association, a Dizi with a strong sense of justice became enraged and asked them,
"Why are you doing this to us? Why?"
Members of the Self-Help Association ran to the next building, with guilty conscience. The Dizi followed them, but she was stopped by the guard.
"I am looking for the people who just entered the building."
Do you also have an appointment with Prosecutor Ho Kwon-jen?
The Dizi took a closer look. Taiwan's High Court. She recognized the building as Taiwan High Court, where Ho Kwon-jen had worked following his promotion. In addition to summoning witnesses, the court examined 12 big boxes of seized evidence. The truth became evident after over 200 witnesses testified and real facts were presented. On September 25, 2003, the first instance decision declared Tai Ji Men not guilty. A not guilty decision was issued after the first trial. The decision came 7 years after the day Tai Ji Men was searched and framed. The acquittal caused the Dizi present at the trial to break into tears of joy. How many Tai Ji Men Dizi have been physically and mentally affected in the last 7 years? For the Dizi, how much time and dreams were lost? The prosecutor appealed the acquittal. The second instance collegial panel judge had more experience and was far more thorough in analyzing the evidence presented in the first instance court. Second instance decision was announced on December 13, 2005. Not guilty in the second instance. It once again proved Tai Ji Men's innocence. Furthermore, the decision confirmed that the red envelopes were gifts. They were tax-exempt income. The procurement of items like uniforms through mutual assistance among the Dizi were not-for-profit sales, and were non-taxable events and had nothing to do with Dr. Hong and his wife. The prosecutor again appealed to the Taiwan Supreme Court. The Supreme Court dismissed the appeal on July 13, 2007 after 1.5 years. Third instance decision, not guilty. The unjust case of Tai Ji Men was rectified. This was a high-profile case. This is also the first case that was not remanded to the lower court. The third instance decision confirmed there was no fraud, no tax owed. Dr. Hong and his Dizi cheered. After suppressing the grievances for 10 years, tears poured. Just when the Dizi believed justice had been restored and the suffering had come to an end, the National Taxation Bureau is like a deadly serpent that tightens its grip on Tai Ji Men's throat. In 2002, the Control Yuan conducted an investigation into Prosecutor Ho, detailing the 8 major violations of the law committed by Ho Kwon-jen. It confirmed Ho's crimes. He should be disciplined immediately by the Ministry of Justice. There is no issue of the expiration of the statute of limitations. Prosecutors represent the government in the cases brought against the accused. There should be no statute of limitations if there is persecution involved. Cases in point are state compensation to the families of the 228 victims, the Chen Kuching's unjust case, etc. When Ho Kwon-jen was investigated by the Control Yuan, he admitted,
"I did not receive approval from my boss to shut down Tai Ji Men's facilities or to suspend their water and electricity supply."
With one-sided allegations, he seized all of Dr. Hong's and his wife's assets. Tai Ji Men was found not guilty by the Third Instance Court in July 2007. According to the Ministry of Justice and the Taiwan High Procurator's Office, the statute of limitations for disciplinary action against Ho has expired. Prosecutor Ho could no longer be punished. However, Dr. Hong and several Dizi were subpoenaed 4 times between October 2007 and March 2008 during the investigation of Prosecutor Ho. Why did the Taiwan High Procurator's Office continue to investigate if it claimed that the disciplinary statute of limitations had expired? And the results of the investigation by the Overwatch Council, the High Prosecutor's Office did not take it seriously and claimed to have found no wrongdoing in Ho Quan-jen's handling of the case. The Ministry of Justice did not punish Ho Quan-jen based on the findings of the Control Yuan. Instead, the Ministry of Justice asked the High Procurator's Office to investigate separately. The Control Yuan censured it, calling this as a major violation of the current 5-branch constitutional system. The Ministry of Justice does not have the authority to conduct a separate investigation under the constitutional framework. Otherwise, the Ministry of Justice is infringing on the Control Yuan's power. Another 10 years have passed. People suffer when the judicial process is delayed. Yet, not only did Prosecutor Ho receive no punishment, but he was promoted to the Deputy Director General of the Agency Against Corruption under the Ministry of Justice. In 2002, he was promoted to Director of the Institute of Forensic Medicine. People have suffered as a result of this major case of injustice, and valuable public resources have been wasted. How could the Ministry of Justice ignore this outcome? How can taxpayers accept that these officials' misbehavior goes unpunished while they continue to collect their pensions after retirement? Scholars called this case the demon-revealing mirror of Taiwan's tax institutions. It revealed how Taiwan's prosecutors shield one another from any accountability. Dear viewer, this concludes the episode. Tai Ji Men's shifu and Dizi initially thought that the injustice and their ordeal of 10+ years finally ended. However, they continued to be persecuted by Taiwan's National Taxation Bureau. Why and how? Please watch the 6th episode of Unbreakable Bonds to find out.
So basically, those who have no idea about the Tai Ji Men case now have some basic knowledge and understanding of what happened. And some 15 years ago, there was hope in Tai Ji Men that things were reaching a conclusion, but that was just the beginning of another 15-year-long journey, which is not completed yet. And we do hope it can be ending very soon. Meanwhile, we all need to work together, helping Tai Ji Men with this case, letting people know about what happened and what is still happening, and how this case is impacting people's lives in Taiwan and abroad as well. We now start with the first panel of experts. The first panelist is Dr. Massimo Introvigne. Professor Introvigne is the founder of the Center for Studies on New Religions, which is based in Turin, Italy, and is the editor-in-chief of Bitter Winter magazine. We have a pre-recorded contribution, and we will now watch it together. Please.
So today we celebrate the United Nations Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy. We do not talk a lot about diplomacy except when there is a war, like now. And then everybody asks, where is diplomacy? Why diplomacy is not solving the problems? Well, to solve the problems, of course, both parts should agree to use diplomacy, and in the present war, it seems one of the parts is not really interested. But today, our webinar is about one special diplomacy called citizen diplomacy. If you go to US, there is a museum of diplomacy, and now this museum has a section on citizens diplomacy, showing that professional diplomats are in a way recognizing citizens diplomacy, its existence and its importance. Citizen diplomacy slogan is to do diplomacy one handshake at a time. But what does it mean? Citizen diplomacy, or the word, or the modern war for citizen diplomacy, was born during the Cold War, when intellectuals and other people were very much concerned about the threat of the nuclear bomb, both in Japan, a country that had experienced the nuclear bombs, and in the United States and Europe. So scientists in particular took advantage of the fact that they went to international conferences where they interacted with Soviet scientists, and they tried to build friendships, believing these friendships would, of course, not solve international problems, but make it more difficult to get to the apocalypse of the nuclear war. From the beginning, citizens' diplomacy also had problems because the Soviets tried to manipulate it for their own agenda, just insisting that foreigners were friends or supporters of the Soviet Union. That was not the case, but never mind. As the Cold War was coming to an end, systems of citizens' diplomacy became more professional and were particularly run by religious organizations. In Japan, a Buddhist lay movement, Soka Gakkai, developed a very sophisticated system of citizens' diplomacy aimed at denuclearization and avoiding the proliferation of nuclear weapons. And the importance of Soka Gakkai citizens' diplomacy for denuclearization has been widely recognized. In Italy, a Catholic community, the community of Sant'Egidio, put together a very professional system of citizens' diplomacy, particularly in Africa, which was instrumental in helping the United Nations terminating conflicts in between African states. Of course, Sant'Egidio citizens' diplomacy, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, or was accused of interfering with the regular state. So much that at one stage, Italy tried to solve the problem by asking the founder and leader of Sant'Egidio, Andrea Riccardi, to become cabinet minister in charge of international cooperation, thus co-opting the citizens' diplomacy of Sant'Egidio into official diplomacy. I always believe that one particularly effective system of citizens' diplomacy was created by Dr. Hong and Tai Ji Men. Dr. Hong and his Dizi, at least before the COVID, became very familiar faces at the United Nations, and thanks to their activities, United Nations accepted to institute an International Day of Conscience. I believe the specificity or peculiarity of Dr. Hong's citizens' diplomacy is precisely this focus on conscience. Before we come to solve specific issues or specific conflict, we all need to go back to conscience. Of course, everybody has said in our webinars time and again that it is paradoxical that while Dr. Hong and Tai Ji Men received so much applause for their international citizens diplomacy, they were persecuted in Taiwan, most recently through tax harassment. But I believe that experience of being persecuted and harassed and resisting it in the end gave to Dr. Hong and this Dizi the strength for being even more effective in their citizens' diplomacy, because they have a real experience of suffering injustice, and so they can empathize with all those who suffer injustice throughout the world. Of course, this is no reason to perpetuate the injustice. It is a reason today, however, to celebrate the effectiveness of Tai Ji Men citizen diplomacy and to try to use our own citizens diplomacy. Even scholars can be citizens diplomats, to tell Taiwan that the Tai Ji Men case should be solved, to tell Taiwan that the resources of Tai Ji Men should be freed so that they can continue to pursue their citizen diplomacy for a civilization of peace and war throughout the world, in a war of conscience. Thank you.
And thank you to Massimo for his presentation. Despite some wind, we could perfectly hear his voice and the strong message he gave to all of us today. We can move on with the next speaker. The next panelist today is Mr. Willy Fautre. Willy Fautre is the co-founder and director of the Brussels-based Human Rights Without Frontiers and a long-standing defender of human rights in the world. Willy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. So today we celebrate the International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. This day was established on the 12th of December 2018 through a UN resolution and was first observed in 2019. As emphasized in the resolution, the International Day is a reaffirmation of the UN Charter and its principles of resolving disputes among countries through peaceful means. It acknowledges the use of multilateral decision-making and diplomacy in achieving peaceful resolutions to conflicts among nations. Multilateralism is therefore meant to consolidate peace and security, development, and human rights. Multilateralism automatically implies advocacy, solidarity, and international cooperation to reach the objectives that have been set. Multilateralism, in the form of membership in international institutions, serves to bind powerful nations and gives small powers a voice and influence that they could not otherwise exercise. It allows a small power to influence a great power, but also a great power to influence another great power. Multilateralism paves the way to global governance. It refers to institutions that coordinate the behavior of transnational actors, facilitate cooperation, resolve disputes, and alleviate collective action problems. Multilateralism broadly entails making, monitoring, and enforcing rules, but it's not limited to states and governments. Civil society organizations also play a role in domestic and international governance. They can and should contribute to multilateralism because their objective is also to consolidate peace, security, development, and human rights. After over 25 years, Tai Ji Men, a civil society organization, still is in its quest for justice, in its conflict with the National Taxation Bureau. In the implementation of its multilateralism strategy, Tai Ji Men has managed to build up a domestic network and a transnational network of active supporters from all realms. Advocacy, solidarity, cooperation are the key words of its strategy. It started many years ago, but there has been a huge acceleration of their multilateral program in the last 2 years. Advocacy has been developed among human rights organizations. At the US Commission on International Religious Freedom and the US State Department, members of the European Parliament and national parliaments of the European Union, think tanks, and so on. Chesnur and Human Rights Without Frontiers have largely contributed to it, to redress this injustice. For 25 years, Tai Ji Men and his Dizi have been publicly protesting, raising their voices, not only in Taiwan, but also in the major centers of international political power, such as the Capitol in the United States. These domestic and international networks of solidarity with Tai Ji Men are closely working together and coalescing for the sake of justice in their case. Just focusing on the last 10 months, the number of initiatives has been absolutely amazing. Few examples, starting with June of last year. The ECOSOC accredited NGO CAP in France, Association Defending Freedom of Conscience, submitted a written statement to the 47th session of the UN Human Rights Council, mentioning specifically the Tai Ji Men case. In July of last year, the Tai Ji Men case was discussed at a side event of the International Religious Freedom Summit in Washington, D.C., with the summit leader's ambassador, Sam Brownback, and Mrs. Katrina Lantos Sweat, expressing their solidarity to Tai Ji Men. In August last year, the French NGO that I have already mentioned, Defending Freedom of Conscience, submitted for a second time a written statement to the UN Human Rights Council for its 48th session, in which it mentions very specifically the Tai Ji Men case. And in October of last year, the Tai Ji Men case was presented in a session of the Parliament of the World's Religions. In December 2021, the date of the fateful anniversary of the Tai Ji Men case, there were 5 events, 2 in the United States and 3 in Taiwan. On the 6th of December, an international forum on the Tai Ji Men case was organized in Washington, D.C. On the next day, the first international press conference on the Tai Ji Men case was organized in Washington. Mid-December, 25 scholars and human rights activists from all over the world wrote to Taiwan's president, Tsai Ing-wen, urging a solution of the Tai Ji Men case. 19th of December, massive street protests reminded the Taiwanese that the Tai Ji Men case, which started on the 19th of December 1996, had been going on for 25 years. 29 December, the Taiwan Association for Financial Criminal Law Study, the Tax and Legal Reform League, and 8 other civil society organizations hosted an international press conference on the Tai Ji Men case specifically at the National Taiwan University Alumni Association. This year, on the 5th of February, the Tai Ji Men case was discussed at a seminar held both in person and via web with the participation of scholars, politicians, and human rights activists, hosted by the Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy in Walnut in California. On the 9th of February, the French NGO that I already mentioned submitted for the third time a written statement to the United Nations Human Rights Council for its 49th session, mentioning the Tai Ji Men case. A lot of international webinars have also successfully been organized every month to put the Tai Ji Men case on the radar of the international community. All these events show that Tai Ji Men has really understood and integrated the concept of multilateralism in its strategy. They could only take place and be successful with the full commitment of their Dizi in Taiwan, in the US, and in Europe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Willy. Thanks for stressing the point that citizens diplomacy is not just the title of our webinar, but
Yes.
it's something that is so important for Tai Ji Men and for all the groups experiencing any form of discrimination, harassment, or whatever. Thank you very much again. Next panelist today is Marco Respinti. Marco Respinti is a professional journalist in Italy, a professional translator, and director in charge of the lovely Bitter Winter magazine. Marco, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you very much to everyone. Diplomatic relationships among countries are commonly held in great respect, and rightly so. In fact, when a country, by means of its ambassadors, openly moves in one or another direction, it deserves front-page news. The presence of official diplomatic bodies in a country is a sign of peace, or at least of good intentions. On the contrary, when a country calls its ambassadors back, tensions and crises are at the door. And when ambassadors are withdrawn, the winds of war, if not actual war, fill the air. The importance of official diplomacy is, of course, its officiality, but officiality is a double-edged sword. Official bodies may sometimes be slow and too timid to take substantial actions. We should never then underestimate what another form of diplomacy can accomplish. It is citizen diplomacy. With its parallel and sometimes even confidential ways, citizen diplomacy may move quicker and at some extent lighter. It is frequent to see citizen diplomacy at work through indirect tools like scientific and cultural exchanges and even sport. As such, citizen diplomacy is the operation of self-styled, volunteer ambassadors of goodwill who treasure mutual understanding among people and peace among nations. Due to its more informal attitude and less need of a public proscenium, a citizen diplomacy can or could accomplish much. Its more ethics and less etiquette attitude may score goals that official diplomacy doesn't even dream of. In many ways, citizen diplomacy comes from the same mother as advocacy from civil society. And we all know how these twins, when operated by NGOs, organized groups, and popular influencers, can be effective, even pressing governments and their official diplomacies. This explains the tendency of supporters of various causes to enroll VIPs, well-known testimonials, and pop authorities like actors, rock singers, and fashion models, for example, to advance a case, make a statement, or launch a campaign. In brief, one of the great advantages of citizen diplomacy is that its public accountability is much less legally binding than that of official diplomacy. This strength signals also the limits of citizen democracy when unscrupulous minds arbitrarily translate all this into fabrication of arguments to serve selfish interests or, worse, ideological causes. This is the case of what Hungarian-born American political sociologist Paul Hollander labeled as political pilgrims in a 1981 as important as a neglected book under the same title. There, he researches and describes the fate of those renowned Western intellectuals who in various decades made field trips to such places as the Soviet Union, Communist China, and castrist Cuba, where human rights were held in great contempt and persecution of religious, ethnic groups, and dissidents was a daily nightmare. Hollander was a serious scholar and an amiable person. Years ago in Spain, I discussed the topic of his book with him. The aim of those political pilgrims, it was clear, was to support those greatly unjust regimes and discredit all possible criticism of them. Let me indulge a little bit more on the dark side of citizen diplomacy, underlining the case of the New York Times Anglo-American journalist Warren Durante, the man who won Pulitzer Prize for denying the Holodomor, or the immense slaughter of millions of Ukrainians in the 1930s. At that time, the lucid folly of Stalin starved an entire nation to death, both to punish it for its resistance to Marxist forced collectivism, and we all know how much Ukrainians can resist evil, and to force reality to obey the totally exposed Lamarckian biological fallacies of Soviet geneticist Trofim Lysenko, whose flawed theory were later applied also in communist China, causing other millions and millions of deaths. Mine here is a cautionary tale on the possible misuse of the citizen diplomacy. But again, what is citizen diplomacy at its core? I found a better way to respond than comparing it to another concept, the citizen soldier. This comparison may sound odd, since we are, of course, speaking of the good use of diplomacy to achieve peace and justice. But I have my reasons. No one really knows when and where the concept of a citizen soldier was born. We have examples in antiquity as well as in the modern times, from ancient Rome to feudal times, from the American founding to Tyrol and La Vendée Militaire. Instead of a body of people compelled to serve in arms the state and its ends, so possibly its ideology and its misdeeds, the concept of the citizen soldier led the defense of the city to a volunteer operation of freemen to take arms as the last resort, do it for a very limited goal and time, and then return to their ordinary occupation and families. These citizen voluntary militia aimed at the common good were, even using sometimes extreme temporary means, had also an eminent political counterpart in classical Roman time. Lucius Quintus Cincinnatus was a Roman patrician who lived during the age of the Republic. He strongly opposed the manifestation of egalitarianism at that early stage of history, never put his interest above those of the res publica, and retired, working in his own small farm. One day, the Roman motherland was invaded by a nation that the Romans considered barbaric. Brave, mature, and reliable, Cincinnatus was appointed commander-in-chief of the Republic because of its well-known civic virtues, with the title of dictator. In its original meaning, this word was not so scary as it is today, meaning the one ruler in case of a clear and present danger, able to move quickly and safely. And it was a temporary mandate. But of course, a man alone who is given total power is a possible danger, hence the modern meaning of dictatorship that we all fear. Cincinnatus was instead a man of honor, and once his mandate was over and the threat to the city vanished, he gave back the power to the Republic, returning to the war on his farm. I told you a tale of love of the city. So far, we have listed the citizen soldier, the citizen politician, and the citizen diplomat. All of them are examples of public virtue, and all three examples have limits that must be carefully respected, unless we want to fall into the dark side of our story. Now, peace enters exactly this discourse when we reflect upon the fact that the true meaning of all civic obligation and citizens' sense of duty toward the city is to bring about peace. Only peace makes civilization prosper, because peace is the true name of progress. But many times, governments are not able to secure peace and make civilization advance. Now, Tai Ji Men enters the case right here. Its advocacy for peace is a formidable tool, which in turn makes civilization thrive. Its advocacy is an example of peace in action, because it is peaceful as well as determined. Tai Ji Men's citizen diplomacy has pursued what I would call a pre-political aim: call the attention of political and religious leaders to conscience. Before discussing specific situations and conflicts, it is essential to acknowledge that problems can be solved only after the primacy of conscience has been recognized. An outside observer might have predicted that persecution and harassment in Taiwan, through what we call now the Tai Ji Men case, would have derailed the efforts of Dr. Hong Tao-tse and his Dizi as citizen diplomats. In fact, this did not happen. Actually, persecution and tax harassment reinforced the determination of Tai Ji Men in advocating internationally for conscience and a civilization of peace and love. Tai Ji Men serves as an example for all advocacy groups aimed to substantiate citizen diplomacy in opposition to Hollander's political pilgrims and Stalin's counter-duranty, and Tai Ji Men should be imitated. I conclude explaining why. Tai Ji Men Dizi are firm in protesting when protest is needed, yet when they bring the message of peace, love, and conscience to the world, they focus on the positive side of how harmonious and well-ordered a world where the primacy of conscience is and knowledge would be. Basically, the citizens ambassadors of Tai Ji Men are repeating to the whole world what St. Augustine said century ago, and I quote, "Peace between man and man is a well-ordered concord. Domestic peace is the well-ordered concord between those of the family who rule and those who obey. Civil peace is a similar concord among citizens. The peace of all things is the tranquility of order. Order is the distribution which allots things equal and unequal, each to its own place." End of quote. In sum, the other name of peace is justice. I then have the impression that today, thanks to the Tai Ji Men Dizi's long suffering, which motivated them to look at the world with a compassionate gaze, we wrote a new important chapter in the history of citizen diplomacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, for your comments and your remarks. And I really enjoyed when you said more ethics, less etiquette, or something like that. That's very important. More ethics at all levels, including the prosecution's offices. Thank you again. We can now move to the second panel of today's seminar. And we do this by a second video, a Tai Ji Men performance. So we watch the video and then we start with the testimonies with the Tai Ji Men Dizi.
Please beat the drum continuously.
Woohoo!
Woo!
After this very nice video, ceremonies advocating human rights, love and peace for everyone, we can move on with the testimonies. And we start with Miss Zona Chen. Miss Zona Chen is a primary school teacher and a Tai Ji Men Dizi Please, Zona, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Zona. It's my honor to be here with you today. I'm a Tai Ji Men Deep. I have joined Tai Ji Men since I was 1 year old, and I have gained physical, mental, and spiritual health and happiness as a result of my practice. My shifu told me how to be a person of conscience and use wisdom to face challenges in life. I'm an elementary school teacher. I always teach my students to be conscientious and to help others. The United Nations works to promote peace and security, development, and human rights all over the world. I'm here today to share my experiences promoting human rights education in schools. In class, I asked the students to watch a video in which a number of theft victims describe their interaction with the government, which included persecution, violence, and bullying. After watching the video, the students wondered, where are those people going to live when their houses are seized? Those rogue officials are harassing people. Why can't they be stopped? What should we do if we come across these things ourselves? They were stunned when I told them that administrative courts in many nations have a success rate of more than 50%. What? That is too low. Then I told them, when legislator Lai Shibao praised the authorities, he pointed out that the people's victory rate in Taiwan's administrative courts is 0.3%. The kids were taken aback. They were well aware that even if they got a 50 or so out of 100 on the math paper, their parents would punish them. Let alone if they got only 0.3 out of 100. The children expressed shock, rage, and sadness upon learning that such things exist in our nation. Why can't our nation find a way to increase the success rate of people in administrative course? The students inquired at the end of class. Taiwan has been dubbed the beacon of democracy in Asia, but are we truly democratic? On July 13, 2007, after 10 years and 7 months, the Supreme Court found Tai Ji Men not guilty and there was no tax evasion. All defendants were paid for their unjust detention by the government. According to the Control Yuan's investigation, Prosecutor Hou Kuan-ren violated 8 major laws in the Tai Ji Men case, while the National Taxation Bureau violated 7. Instead of being punished, Prosecutor Hou has now been promoted. This is really a national embarrassment. It is a shame on Taiwan's democracy and human rights. Mr. Huang Kunguang, a retired auditor from the Kaohsiung National Taxation Bureau, stated the Tai Ji Men case is clearly illegal taxation and an absolute violation of the rent tax legislation. It is already evident that the Tai Ji Men case is a fake one that should be resolved immediately. However, on August 21st, 2020, the National Taxation Bureau and the Administrative Enforcement Agency cooperated to illegally and violently auction the sacred land of Tai Ji Men. This is an illegal and unjust act. It is the most horrible human rights violations. Despite the several human rights violations, my shifu continues to teach us to love our nation and to help more people in need. Tai Ji Men has taken part in the National Day celebration 8 times and has been praised by President Tai and 3 former presidents. We have traveled to 101 nations to spread the ideas of love, peace, conscience, and Tai Chi culture, with the goal of making the world a happier, healthier place in body, mind, and spirit. I have traveled with my shifu to Korea, the United States, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and Austria. And this trip of love and peace have deeply moved me. Language will not be a barrier between people, nor will nationality or race. Everyone on the planet wishes to see a world with peace and harmony. The Taiwanese government should stop harassing Tai Ji Men, a respectable organization that promotes world peace. The Tai Ji Men case is well known in Taiwan and throughout the world as a case of human rights violations. I hereby request President Tsai to resolve the Tai Ji Men case and return our sacred land to us immediately. Return the justice and innocence that has been delayed for 25 years to us. This is the actual transformation of justice in Taiwan, as it shows true democracy, rule of law, human rights, and freedom. Finally, I sincerely wish for world peace and the respect of all human rights, that no one is enslaved and that everyone will have true freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zona, for your presentation, for your insights, talking about your experience with your pupils in school and traveling with Dr. Ong. And I'm sure that someone in Central Europe enjoyed the teachings of Dr. Ong. In fact, also in that area, there have been a few problems of human rights abuse, not only in the past, but also these days. Thank you again, Zona. We now pass the floor to the next Dizi, to Miss Athena Lee. Athena Lee is a new graduate of Taipei Medical University and a Dizi of Tai Ji Men. And so I'm now giving the floor to Athena for her testimony. Please, the floor is yours, Athena.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, dear hosts and distinguished guests. My name is Athena. I've been practicing Qigong in Tai Ji Men since I was a child and also a new graduate of Taipei Medical University. Love and peace are essential foundation of the world's sustainable development, as well as the common and holy wish of all people, which allows people to learn from each other, cohabit peacefully, fosters national progress, and also aids in the beneficial development of the world. Furthermore, a nation's peace is based on the mutual tolerance, respect, and trust between the government and the people. To promote love, peace, and conscience, my shifu Dr. Hong and many Tai Ji Men Dizi have visited over 300 cities in more than 100 countries, devoting in over 3,000 cultural performances around the world to promote love, peace, and conscience, and international friendship through cultural exchanges, international forums, and ring the bell of world peace and love, and spread the beauties of Chinese culture across the world. Yet to date, 399 prominent figures from 122 countries have rung the bell, made their wishes for love and peace, and pledged to work for the world's sustainable future. Among them are 43 heads of state and government, 7 Nobel Peace Prize laureates, UN ambassadors and officers, and other visionary leaders. Many of these leaders have successfully put their peace wishes into practice, using their love and wisdom to put an end to wars between the countries or years of civil strife in their own countries, which has become a legend among the nations. On September 15, 2005, the president of the Dominican Republic, Fernandez Reina, attended the World Summit of Love and Peace at the United Nations Plaza Hotel. On that day, he turned the key of the world, which symbolized the initiations of love and peace by the heads of state with Dr. Hong Daozi together. President Fernandez Reina rang the bell and made a wish. I wish that all people from all over the world can understand each other and that love and peace can prevail. In 2008, he then resolved a crisis among Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela that had brought them to the brink of war due to his wish. Create peace, security, and happiness for millions of people. There's no way to boost a country's success and development than for the government to create a good living environment and cultivate public trust and collaboration. Where the countries around the world strive for international cooperation and peaceful development, there are still many cases of illegal government officials abusing their power and using unjust judicial and taxation methods to persecute people for the sake of performances and bonuses, posing serious conflicts between the government and the people, and brutally destroying the happiness of people in Taiwan, a country that upholds human rights. In 2020, there were 14.31 million cases of tax and fee enforcement in Taiwan, which increases 7.53 times in just 10 years. On average, 1 out of every 2 people is suffering from such grief, fear, and anxiety day and night. There are still many unexplored victims who can only cry in the dark. The unfair tax environment has also resulted in a corporate exodus, brain drain, the shelters of children's hope to start their own business in their hometowns, and even worried that they will be persecuted by the unjust taxations. What I find the more unacceptable is that such a positive organization is being suppressed by both the national judicial and tax systems in Taiwan. The Tai Ji Men religious belief and human rights persecution case, which had attracted much attention and rescued by experts and scholars at home and abroad, has entered its 26 years and has not been rehabilitated. Even though on July 13, 2007, Taiwan Supreme Court had found Tai Ji Men not guilty, no tax owed, and no tax evasion. However, the NTB ignored the judicial decision and continued to issue illegal tax bills and even collaborated with the Administrative Enforcement Agency to illegally auction off people's land. Despite the fact that Tai Ji Men has sought out remedies through legal methods and won 18 times in administrative remedies procedures, the tax bill still continues to be resurrected. The deadline for verifications exceeded again and again, and illegal tax bills are issued. The people are confronted with a huge monster. The illegal government officials know the law and break the law, and they are not held accountable, let alone punished. In the circumstances of Taiwanese people, human rights tremble under the authorities of officials. How can people live in peace and how can people live and work in peace and contentment? How can Taiwan become a beacon of democracy and the defenders of human rights in Asia? It also makes it difficult for Tai Ji Men to continue to spread love and peace and conscience throughout the world in the face of the terrifying legal tax monsters. However, my shifu instructed us to apply heart, calm, and patience, and guided us down the path of true love for Taiwan. We traveled to all 5 continents in the past to promote peace and conscience. But this time, we traveled to all of the Taiwan streets and allies to preach the importance of legal taxation, turning grief and pain into courage and motivation. In the hopes of awakening Taiwanese people's understanding and Taiwanese government officials' conscience, in the face of the chaotic world situation, true bravery is not fearlessness, but power motivated by compassionate and firm beliefs, insisting on listening to the voice of the conscience, using heart to hear the sorrow and the pain of the world, and creating a peaceful world for the benefits of all beings. Just at the highest levels of martial arts, peace, terminating violence, and promoting goodness. Nowadays, the world is filled with global turmoil, epidemics, wars, natural disasters, and other existential crises. Humanity is facing an unprecedented test of survival. A good thought can save all mankind, but on the other hand, an evil thought can cause human extinction. A choice made by the country's leader might have far-reaching effects for the entire country or possibly the entire globe. People lose their lives, property, and freedom as a result of war. If leaders respect human rights and follow their conscience, they will be able to prevent wars from injuring their people. Similarly, if tax authorities do not follow the rule of law, issue illegal tax bills, or confiscate people's housing, it will cause people to be displaced, miserable, or even desperate. It is no different from the war and causes people pain and fear. If the government commits mistakes, they should correct the mistakes in the first place, boost officials' morale, encourage tax reform, and follow the rule of law. So as a youth in Taiwan, I'd like to make a remorseful appeal to the government. The following is a voice and appeal of the youngster. We have lived in fear of tax violence. I sincerely ask for the government to find out the main issue of taxation system, severely punish the illegal government officials to create a living environment without fear and deprivation. Thank you.
Thank you, Athena. Thanks for pointing out and raising the point again of the tax bonuses in Taiwan, which is a big problem. In a previous webinar, we targeted it, we labeled it as a form of institutionalized corruption, because it's a way that the government allows officials to get money from basically issuing fines and tickets to and bills to people. There was a huge number only in 2020, a very big big case of tax bills in Taiwan. Only in 2020, and the number of bills that have been issued has increased, meaning that the bonus system is probably, a system that is causing problems to many other people. Thank you again, Athena. We move next to Eileen. So the next Dizi is Miss Eileen Ho. Miss Eileen Ho is marketing designer and a Dizi of Tai Ji Men. Please, Eileen, the floor is yours for your presentation, please.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Hello, host, panelists, and all friends who joined today's forum. I'm Eileen, and I'm here to show my support for UN International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. The consequence of the Ukraine war and pandemic are now affecting us all and revealing one fact that even if some problems appear to be unrelated to us, they may affect us in the future. So I believe as a result, we should learn as much as possible about global issues and even become actively involved in them. So I'll share my personal experience to explain how the authoritarian disguised in democracy is like an invisible gun, which is very powerful and dangerous and will cause harm to countless people. And even worse, it may be passed on to more people and forming a vicious cycle. I will also share my other experience in learning Eastern philosophy it's called Stop the War and Promote Good Acts, which is the essential value of martial arts in order to break the cycle and promote peace. So I practice it as a volunteer to promote tax and legal reform, as well as to spread love and peace around the world. So just like many other countries, the land I grew up in was a colonized nation for a long time and was trying to transition from an authoritarian regime to a democratic one, which is usually accomplished through many sacrifices. One of the most horrible testimonies is the Tai Ji Men case, which lasts 26 years. So just like other panelists have mentioned, in 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court in Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Tai Ji Men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. And the Control Yuan found 8 serious violations of the law committed by the prosecutor Hou Kuan-ren, who initiated the case, and 7 major violations of the law committed by the National Tax Bureau. And the resolution of the Executive Yuan cross-functional meeting was to stop issuing tax bills after the criminal case. So the people of Tai Ji Men actually sought assistance from the president and all branches of Taiwanese government, but the case was never justified. Even in 2020, the executive office illegally auctioned off the land of Tai Ji Men in Miaoli, and which was going to be the site of self-cultivation, and it was nationalized. So it is the evidence that every part of one's governments, from a prosecutor system to legal system, tax system, executive system, even the police officer who is closest to the people may become executioners for the authoritarian. So the point I'm saying is this is more frightening. This may be more frightening than war, because the power is like an invisible gun, because it is extremely difficult to identify the person in possession of it or predict when, where, or who will be the next victim. As a result, people will be terrified all of the time. On the other hand, my shifu, Dr. Hong, Dharma of Tai Ji Men, the frontline victim who was illegally detained for 4 months, has taught us in a completely different way. He taught us that the most important aspect of learning martial arts is to stop the war and promote good acts, which means to stop conflicts and spread goodness. For the past 26 years, Tai Ji Men has never protested with violence. Rather than causing more harm, we educate ourselves about taxes, laws, and citizen knowledge from experts and scholars. These are efforts that are taken to prevent conflicts, such as holding forums to discuss how to progress taxation and law, as well as advocating for human rights on a bigger scale. We also encourage tax victims to speak out in order to raise social awareness of the issue. Tai Ji Men has never just focused his attention on government officials who break the law, but rather on revealing the truth or locating the invisible guns hidden in the system. When taxation and law are used as a weapon, they can invoke the evil intentions of powerful people. As a result, we should eliminate the risk of the harm from the start. And the more efficient way to resolve conflicts is to resolve them first in our minds, to keep violence, greediness, and other evils from seeding in our hearts. Dr. Hong has always reminded us to let go of hatred and never build one of the invisible guns in our minds, even when confronted with state violence, in order to avoid becoming a part of the vicious cycle and causing large conflicts in the future. He spread this concept not only to Dizi, but also to the people all around the world. While fighting for this case, Tai Ji Men, Dizi, and Dr. Hong has visited 101 nations and invited leaders to ring the bell of world peace and love and make wishes for real actions to change the world. We also held beautiful cultural performances for the local residents, demonstrating a vision of a happy and peaceful world. And to take a step further, the United Nations adopted the draft and declared April 5th as the International Day of Conscience, thanks to the collaboration formed along the way. By understanding the conscience in one's heart, everyone on this planet can begin to learn how to resolve conflicts and spread goodness by doing good deeds and speak good words, and will have a positive influence on others. And Dr. Hong had once shared the message with Pope Benedict XVI, no love, no peace, and peace needs love, and love needs to be balanced. I believe in today's world, it is critical to remind ourselves of love so we can love ourselves and love each other. By, instead of using violence, restore the balance by employing a positive and practical approach to ending persecution and wars. With love, we can build a stable and long-lasting world of peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eileen. Yes, with love, we can build everlasting peace. That's fantastic. And we all agree with you that this can be done. Next presentation, Miss Tiffany Fang, former director, marketing company, and a Tai Ji Men. These, Tiffany, please, the floor is yours for your insights, remarks, comments on your experience with Tai Ji Men.
Dear host and guests, I'm Tiffany Fang, a Tai Ji Men Dizi. I have been practicing Qigong at Tai Ji Men under the guidance of Dr. Hong for almost 30 years. Since I was 12 years old, my shifu teaches me how to behave and how to cultivate myself and to do meaningful things. In 2000, I have the honor to participate in the Peace Culture Tour with my shifu to spread love and peace through the cultural exchanges at the Sydney Summer Olympic. During the competition period, we performed at cultural exhibition venues, such as the Olympic competition area and the Opera House, to convey the spirit of martial arts, to stop fighting and promote goodness, and to enhance the energy of stability and peace in the world. The goal of the Olympic movement is to educate youth for the peaceful and virtuous world through the sport to do not involve any form of discrimination, and let embody the Olympic spirit, which calls for friendship, solidarity, and fair competition. Just like the multi-terrorism, it is a way for nations to come together to form organizations to solve problems in the region without the discrimination against any member nation, to help each other to promote the peaceful and prosperous future for the world. In 2000, Tai Ji Men Shifu and Dizi performed at international renowned Sydney Opera House, presenting the Tai Chi philosophy of yin and yang, and embodying the cultural essence of Tai Ji Men's night of the ancient culture. Dr. Hong and his honor, Gordon Samuels, the governor of the New South Wales, had a great conversation and shared ideas of the love and peace. In his address, the governor said, Tai Ji Men understands this and understand that our conduct must mirror our words, must match our sentiments. Otherwise, however noble the words may be, the results will be quite inadequate. If we desire peace, we must act peace. If we wish for harmony, we must learn how to live in harmony with one another. I was one of the performers on that day. Our many years of Qigong Foundation combining music, martial arts, dance, heart, and the Qi brought Chinese culture to Sydney Opera House. We believe that the culture and the art has no frontier, and such cultural exchanges would bring people not only the visual refreshment, but also a different touch on the soul. This love and beauty would be an unforgettable treasure in people's hearts and a continuation of goodness. At that time, I also realized that my shifu was leading his Dizi to promote the love and peace through Qigong and the martial art culture, proving that our conduct mirrors our words. However, on December 19, 1996, prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren illegal searched Tai Ji Men chemist, and the next day, he disseminated false information via the media that Tai Ji Men has defrauded $3.1 billion and involved in tax evasion. He then prosecuted Tai Ji Men by creating false witness and false evidence and referred the illegal indictment to the National Taxation Bureau for the taxation. The NTB did not conduct any substantive checks in accordance with the law and accused Tai Ji Men of the tax evasion merely based on the false indictment. Such action by the prosecutor and the NTB is obviously a violation of the procedural justice. At that time, I was just a high school student. My family, friends, and my classmates all left me for being cheated, and some of my friends became estranged. The media coverage was overwhelming and different from what I have seen and heard in my practicing. Even my relative argued with my parents and asked us to leave Tai Ji Men, but the truth is that my parents have still improved, and their work and their life become more stable as a result of practicing Qigong, and I got a wise mentor. But instead of being protected, Tai Ji Men, as an ancient Orthodox culture, was politically prosecuted. Even though the Supreme Court ruled industrial trials that there was no guilt and no tax evasion, the NTB has not only failed to revoke the tax bill in accordance with the law, but on August 21st, 2020, together with the Administrative Enforcement Agency, they forcefully auctioned off the land in Miaoli intended for a self-cultivation center and turned it into national ownership. Apparently, they could thereby pocket significant bonuses that have no basis in law by issuing tax bill against a large movement such as Tai Ji Men. How many 26 years will there be in one's life when Tai Ji Men case happened? I was just a high school student, and now I'm a mother of 2 children. But the Tai Ji Men case has not yet been addressed, and the level of bullying and discrimination are still attached to Tai Ji Men shifu and Dizi. For the sake of justice and richness, I have taken my 2 young children to Kaitagulan Boulevard many times to express the idea of the abolishing tax incentive bonuses and defending Taiwan's taxpayers' rights. We hope that government would see the suffering of the people. Therefore, I'm willing to take my children to participate in the tax reform movement, regardless of the sun and rain, in the hope that such a tragedy will not be passed on to the next generation. As the Dalai Lama said, peace can only last where human rights are respected. When people ignore their conscience, when they ignore human rights, and they only see is self, they will easily make arrogant and wrong decisions. It's like when government officials only see bonuses, they will overbill, emphasis, enforce illegally, break the law, and ignore the people's right to property, life, and freedom. We would like to call on the government and the people to eliminate the discrimination and value human rights on the International Day of the Multi-Terrorism and the Diplomacy for Peace. And we will continue to plead rationally for more people to know the truth. I hope that Taiwanese government will revoke the illegal tax bill and return the sacred land and bring justice and richness to Tai Ji Men shifu and Dizi. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you for your passion, and thank you for addressing the case of Tai Ji Men from a different perspective and from your own experience in the Tai Ji Men group. Thank you very much. We now move to the next testimony with Miss Eva Tseng. Eva is a university student at the Department of, we have now Pamela Chen. Pamela is a project manager and Tai Ji Men Dizi. Then afterwards we have Eva, sorry for the thing. So Pamela, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm honored to participate in today's forum to celebrate the International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace, adopted by United Nations. At the same time, I would like to show Tai Ji Men's action applying multilateralism and citizen diplomacy for peace for more than 20 years. Sadly to say, such a wonderful organization has been persecuted in Taiwan for 26 years. I want to garner attention in the international community regarding this case. The promotion of international peace is paramount in Tai Ji Men. For more than 20 years, the master, Dr. Hong Daozi, has led his deeds visiting 101 countries to promote culture of peace through martial arts demonstrations, heartwarming songs, and beautiful dances. I've had many opportunities to participate in these events. These trips inspire my life. When I see people around the world responding with smiles from their hearts, giving us hugs or compliments, across language barriers, the connection is truly one of a kind. We all feel happiness, full of love and warmth. In the 21st century, we are living in a technology development environment. However, there are limited opportunities to explore the meaning of life. What can we do to create internal value as a human being? There are a lot of truths about life we still need to learn. Through practicing the Tai Ji Men Qigong and the cultural goodwill truths, I have explored the meaning of life. Each journey is a presentation of how civil society can amplify the power of diplomacy. It is an action to practice peace. At the age of 21, I joined Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy to practice Qigong. People from different backgrounds, religions and beliefs, and nationalities are sitting together to learn the Tai Ji Men Qigong. We learned the way to cultivate our heart from the Grand Master Shifu. Immersed in such a positive environment, the circle of life was immediately enlarged. These are joyful training process as well. I've learned the value of respect, listening, inclusiveness, and express my thoughts from the heart. Every single Tai Ji Men cultural goodwill trip is self-funded by the Tai Ji Men shifu and Dizi. Our only mission is to help the world. Ironically, the Taiwan government has been persecuting Tai Ji Men for more than 25 years. The persecution is a falsification beginning from prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren in 1996. He fabricated false evidence and witness. It took 10 years in the process of lawsuit. Finally, Taiwanese Supreme Court has made a final decision that Tai Ji Men is not guilty and without any tax evasion. Moreover, Taiwanese government issued national compensation for its wrong detention of the innocent defendants. It should be ended there. Justice has prevailed, but it has not. The few unethical officials never stop harassing Tai Ji Men by using the context of abandoned indictment made by prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren, and continue to impose unlawful tax bills that disregard the Supreme Court's decision. In August 2020, Tai Ji Men's sacred land was confiscated and nationalized. 2007 was the year of judicial acquittal in the Tai Ji Men case. That year was the first year for me to be a mother. I applied the law I've learned from Tai Ji Men to raise my kid. My husband and I also brought my daughter to Tai Ji Men when she turned 3. She started to learn from Tai Ji Men shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi. She grew up in the Tai Ji Men big family, full of love. She wrote a story, The Lonely Shark, when she was 9. This is the book. Her work was adapted into a stage play and presented to school with a full house. That is the part of the presentation of her learning from Tai Ji Men. From her book, I can touch a pure spirit of love and justice. This year, she is a young adult, a 14-year-old. During her young lifespan, she attended various demonstrations fighting for Tai Ji Men. For many years, we flew back to Taiwan to join demonstration because we all love Taiwan. We cannot tolerate Tai Ji Men being mistreated by these officials. It's severely against our belief, which is love. To love our family, love our country, and love the world. Democratic Taiwan cannot allow justice bend to the corruption. We also went to Taiwan Embassy in LA, Washington, DC, and met our congressional representative asking for help. We firmly believe that a peaceful and reasonable request submitted to government officials should receive a polite reply. That is how I've been treated in the United States. The Congress member always set an appointment and meet with us, willing to listen to us and trying to help. It is totally different reaction from Taiwan's official. How about in Taiwan? We were ignored for a long time. We can only receive automatic replies which do not relate to our questions. Our request was forwarded to another department. The department forward to Department B and B to C, on and on. Our requests had traveling inside our bureaucratic system for 26 years without a concrete answer. How can Taiwanese government treat its people like that? It's no respect and no human rights at all. This year, my daughter, who is 14 years old, completed a documentary called The Battle for Justice. She signed up for a contest for a National History Day. The theme of this year was titled here, Debate and Diplomacy in History, Success, Failures, Consequence. She spent a lot of time reading, exploring the facts of the case, writing the script, and discussing it with her team members and teachers, and finally came out a 10-minute film. She hopes that through this documentary, international scholars can realize the truth and help Taiwan government to practice justice and help Tai Ji Men to rectify. It's an ongoing 26 years of persecution. The Tai Ji Men shifu and Dizi have exhausted our energy to fight for justice. People in Taiwan should enjoy democracy only when the authoritarian mindset is out of the bureaucratic system. The few officials should shoulder the consequence for their wrongdoings. I will express my sincere appreciation to Taiwanese parliament members, scholars, and experts, and also government officials. They have love and they are righteous, speaking up in forums, joining these demonstrations with us, holding public hearings. They have helped fighting a better tax and legal system in Taiwan. And I also want to say thank you to all the international scholars and experts for your love for Taiwan and Tai Ji Men. 26 years have passed. It's a silent and peaceful protest with peace and love. The door of justice remains closed and still needs more efforts to open up. I hope the ratification will come soon. The truth of justice can prevail in the Tai Ji Men case. Today, I'm seeking for international help, an urgent appeal to Taiwanese government to stop persecution of Tai Ji Men. Let Tai Ji Men work fully for the sustainable development of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pamela. And your emotion, it's perfectly understandable for all the things you've been going through as a group, as a family, and as an individual. And thanks for sharing the works of your daughter. Maybe it would be nice to have a look at your daughter's work or to listen to her on testimony in a future seminar. Thank you very much for your testimony today. Thank you. And now, last but not least, we have Eva Tseng. Eva is a university student at the Department of Communication Management and a Dizi of Tai Ji Men. Please, Eva, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Eva. Recently, the changing epidemic and the war between Russia and Ukraine have been the most discussed news topics. The Russian-Ukrainian conflict has an impact on the current and future international situations, as well as immediately challenge of rising energy price and economic turbulence. Many young people in Taiwan, on the other hand, are unconcerned about world events as long as they have enough money to live and the war occurred far away from home. As I grew up in Tai Ji Men, my shifu advised us to pay more attention to international news in order to better visualize global issues and use good intention to resolve the world's evils. As a result, my shifu lead Dizi around the 5 continents, meeting the national leaders and elites from various fields in the hope that ringing the bell of the peace and wishing for peace. We will plant seeds of goodwill in their hearts, allowing them to influence themselves and the other in future, and resolve conflict, crisis, and even wars with wisdom. Mr. Fernandez, President of Dominican Republic, rang the bell in 2005, expressing his desire for love and peace, saying, "I wish that people from all over the world can understand each other and that love and peace can prevail." In 2008, President Fernandez's foresight in ending the war crisis in Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela, become an international legend. The desire for global peace is a dream that can be realized if all members of the world work together. Dr. Hong Daozi launched an era of conscience movement in 2014, calling for peace in the world if everyone has a conscience, and claiming that we are working for world peace as long as we maintain our conscience and engage in more conscientious activities. I travel around the world with the Federation of World Peace and Love to promote cultural exchanges, love and peace, and the era of conscience movement. In 2018, I had the opportunity to represent full power at the International Conference of Chief Justice of the World in India. The Declaration for the Movement of an Era of Conscience, the Declarations on Taxpayers' Human Rights, and the Declaration of Human Rights for World Citizens were all shared with the justice. When we told the Chief Justice of South Sudan about the era of conscience movement, he said that his country had been in a constant state of civil war since independence. So he strongly supported our conscience movement and hoped that South Sudan's children would grow up as happy and healthy as we did. We go around the world to promote peace and conscience, as well as national culture to show Taiwan's energy and hope. Tai Ji Men has been invited to perform on several occasions on Taiwan's National Day at Kadai Galan Boulevard, as well as the prologue of the Taipei 2017 University. We use our power to foster a moral culture and strengthen national diplomacy, whether at home or abroad. Under the guidance of Zhang Menren, Tai Ji Men is an activity going international, doing national diplomacy for Taiwan and expanding Taiwan's exposure in the international arena, said current President Tsai Ing-wen. Despite the president's praise for Tai Ji Men, we continue to face injustice and violation of human rights in Taiwan. In 1996, Tai Ji Men was engulfed in Roma as a result of prosecutor Hou Kuan-ren's false accusation and the use of the media to spread false news in violation of the investigation. The Tai Ji Men case happened before I was born, 26 years ago. However, I'm now working in society. When I was a kid, I was afraid that people would wonder why Tai Ji Men was evading taxes. Now that I know the truth about the Tai Ji Men case, I'm still worried about what I will do as a Taiwanese if the tax law eventually prosecute everyone. Many people face tax issues, such as Miss Wu Pei Chen, who received a tax bill from the tax authority after failing to purchase a cram school. Her physical and mental health has been deteriorating since 1997. And she has no way of seeking treatment. The government has even taken away the funds she required for medical treatment. Furthermore, as reported in the news, people received the wrong tax bill, even though they shared the same name. There are examples of illegal behavior by the taxing authority. If you want to file a lawsuit, you will find that the number of Taiwan taxpayers who receive a favorable verdict is insignificant. According to statistics, the Supreme Administrative Court ruled in favor of taxpayers 11.31% of the time in 2018, a significant difference when compared to 50% in Czech Republic, 50% in India, and 60% in Denmark. Associate Professor Huang Shizhou of Taipei University of Commerce's Department of Finance and Taxation stated on the Ministry of Finance Facebook page that the German federal tax code has a success rate of more than 20%, while state tax codes have a success rate of more than 40%, resulting in a favorable decision for taxpayers. Because of the high cost of the adjudicating tax lawsuit in Germany, judges will make evidence public of adjudicating, giving both parties time to consider settling, and only a small percentage of cases will go to adjudication. The majority of cases in Taiwan is tax litigation, on the other hand, will not be decided by judges, resulting in a never-ending stream of illegal tax bills. On November 30, 2021, the legislative branch passed the third reading of the Article 28 of the Tax Collection Act, which changed the government's erroneous tax reform terms from no time limit to a 15-year limit. In a letter to the media, lawyer Chen criticized an amendment as a 40-year rejection in the rule of law and a return to martial law. I'm worried about my future as Taiwan's legal tax structure deteriorates. Regardless of current public moral or legal regulation affecting our growth, we all know that today's and future generation of young people will be crucial to our country's success. When I first took to the street in junior high school to voice my demands due to tax legislation, I wish that the injustice of Taiwan's tax system had been corrected before I grew up. We are still working on the human rights of taxpayers today, and we are seeing children as young as 2 or 3 years old take to the street with their parents to speak out for the people. My hope for these children is that they grow up happy and free of the injustice of tax law, as South Sudan justice does. A good education created a good culture, and a good culture creates a good economy, said Dr. Hong Daozi. I hope that the government will listen to the people's voice so that we can educate the next generation with more positive experiments, allowing them to grow up in a decent social culture and improving Taiwan's future. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, Eva, for your presentation and for stressing the point that it's very important to work with future generations, with the young people. Without young people, there can be no change, and the change needs to start right now. This is why we are doing now what we are doing. So we are now reaching the end of the webinar with some more insights and conclusions that will be made by Mr. Stephen Enada, who is Executive President of ICAN. ICAN is the International Committee of Nigeria, and it is live from the United States. After his conclusions, there will be a video, and at the end of the video, if anyone wants to say bye-bye, feel free to do so. Thank you very much, and Stephen, the floor is yours.
All right, sorry. Thank you, my dear friend, Dr. Amikarelli. It's really a privilege and honor to connect with brothers and sisters from around the globe on these issues of the Tai Ji Men. Now, when we talk about citizen diplomacy for peace and justice, I've actually listened and to to be precise, talking about the Tai Ji Men case. I look at this day, we are talking about international multilateralism, diplomacy, and peace. Now, this is a question of conscience and it's a question of morality as well. That being said, this is actually where I look at us as global diplomats pursuing the agenda for the Tai Ji Men. And this, to me, having listened, I'm coming from this approach. And my approach is very simple. We are talking about, because we talk about conscience, and conscience helps us to distinguish between evil and good. Now, it's a privilege to have connected and to have spoken even in this webinar on the Tai Ji Men case. But let me just cite a few examples and then I will try to look at what are going to be the actionable plans that will help us to advance this story. The trajectory, if you guys, you know that the world is inundated with neediest cases like this one. So there is this competition in the global arena because most people are being inundated with human rights violation cases coming from across the globe. Now, but there is something, when we talk about this issue of citizen diplomacy for peace and justice in respect to the Tai Ji Men case, I look at the burden of bad diplomacy. And that is, sometimes we are caught in this burden of bad diplomacy that has not really helped us to advance the cause. Now, for example, when I talk about, what do I mean by bad diplomacy? One is we have a vested economic interest. And when you have vested economic interest, it actually makes civil society organization and human rights violation causes of, for example, the Tai Ji Men case to be very, very difficult. A lot of people, they understand that, look, this issue has been adjudicated, justice has been given by the Supreme Court of Taiwan. In this case, then why are they not still being free from this burden? Now, the question is like many economic players, either in Taiwan, outside Taiwan, want to be friend of government because through that they make money off people. So politicians who want to take advantage of people's vulnerability like the Tai Ji Men case, that is actually a big burden. So we begin to look at this burden and practices so that one, there will be naming and shaming. Because if we don't do that, because even you can see how modern intellectuals misshape our society when it comes to this issue of injustice experienced by the Tai Ji Men. Now, the other thing I still see also that is the burden of bad diplomacy is repeating methodology that does not work. So, for example, are we going to be repeating certain methodology or methods that have not really helped us to move this needle? I also, like I've said, the global space is inundated with hundreds of neediest cases. So now how are we going to position the issue of the Tai Ji Men so that we rally global diplomats? And what I mean by global diplomats are actually people like us who we can identify, discover, and begin to market this issue. It's just like selling. We must look at this issue of the Tai Ji Men case as a product that has to be marketed and it has to be bought. So I think we need to we must recruit civil society organizations to be missionary for the Tai Ji Men case. And then also we need to bring certain specific leaders of these organizations. I actually was shared with Jennifer last week about some specific organizations that we can bring some of their core leaders to this webinar so that they will begin to share with us the passion and they will connect. And you know, this will actually lead to what has actually produced some result. result in the sense that we will not be able to write memo together. These organizations who are concerned and people of goodwill will sign off, and then we will now present it to specific congressional leaders, Senate leaders, and people in different administrations that are very relevant to our cause and that can cause a change. So, like I said, sign a memo, we bring them together to webinar like this, introduce them to this mainstream, they connect with us, and a lot of them are ready. And then while you are sleeping in Taiwan or you are awake in Taiwan, they are in Washington, DC, engaging on your behalf. So I think that is we need to really do that as well. Now, another tool of international multilateralism and diplomacy is to work to trigger international tools that can activate sanctions through different instruments that are available. That is because when you see how stubborn the Taiwanese government has become, then we begin to ask ourselves, what is going on here? They are in their comfort zone, not taking any action. And like I said in our last webinar, that an obstinate government like that of Taiwan will not do any justice to this case. So what can be done? Yes, there are multilateral tools, and thank God, Alex, you are a lawyer, and other people here are lawyers. And when I talk about multilateral instruments, I want to be specific about Global Magnitsky Acts. Who are those players in Taiwan, in Taiwanese government, who are perpetrating this issue, this injustice on the Tai Ji Men? That said, I will want to conclude with the fact that this actually can be something our civil society organization friends, either in the UK, in the EU, in the United States. I can speak specifically of that United States, which I'm involved, and I'm also looking forward to seeing how, one, we bring these people together in a webinar like this, give them some insight, recruit them into this cause, and then we'll begin to look at what other sanctions that can make Taiwanese government give absolute justice to the Tai Ji Men. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your conclusions and remarks. And we now have a further video. Children of Heaven. A little bit about the background of this video. Children of Heaven, human rights are a universal value. In the global village, we are family and everyone is supposed to respect and love each other. However, these days, wars, epidemics, global insecurity, human rights violations, and unprecedented natural and man-made disasters are prevalent. To change the current turmoil so everyone can avert pain and embrace happiness, the answer lies in the children of heaven. So let's watch it together.
Once upon a time, our ancestors passed down a legend. Their world was in trouble, just like our current world. The world was facing many crises, natural disasters, wars, and epidemics. What can I do to make the world a better place? Or can I only hope to save myself? If you change yourself, you can change the world. The children of heaven are calling. How to turn a crisis into a chance? All the answers are in this story. In a quiet and peaceful paradise, a group of children accidentally let the 5 poisons sneak into the heart. Greed made greedy pluck flowers from others. Hate made angry often fight with others. Ignorance made foolish quarrel over trivial matters and curse others. Arrogance made arrogant talk behind others' backs. And doubt made doubtful scare people with mischiefs.
God spoke to the children in a serious tone.
Children, the laws of heaven are very strict. Look, the planet shining with blue light is called Earth, where you must reflect on yourselves, change yourselves for the better, and not make the same mistakes again, so that when your heart becomes pure and full, you'll have the chance to return to heaven. Now I give you a bright treasure to help you solve problems in this world. You must not forget it.
As God wordly advised them, he reluctantly looked at the leaving children. The children of heaven came to earth one by one. They found that it was a comfortable environment. Blue skies, green land, birds and flowers, everything was thriving. In the beginning, they remembered God's advice and lived in harmony with all the living creatures on earth with love and laughter, bringing colors to the world. They believed that soon they will be able to return to heaven and to God. After a while, the children became lazy, not reflecting for 1 day, 2 days, and after 3 days, they no longer remembered God's advice. The 5 poisons made their hearts lose their way. Greedy, selfishly destroyed nature for her own needs, making the livable earth lose its balance. Angry, started a war and fought over living, causing fear and sorrow to all living creatures and making them wail in pain. These dark spirits gradually gathered into a demon with a ferocious face with horns on its head. The evil demon turned into various forms, using evil ideas to drive away the goodness in people's hearts. The earth could not handle people's arbitrary destruction. The timing of spring, summer, fall, and winter was disrupted. Arrogance also caused fire that almost burned everything, extinguishing all life forms. Doubtful caused water that destroyed homes. Earthquakes and hurricanes appeared everywhere, and the beauty of earth was about to disappear. The demon in his heart further drove ignorant to do harmful things, such as allowing the government that does not know how to love people to disregard the officials that are greedy for bonuses, to levy taxes arbitrarily, to seize people's properties, and forcibly auction off people's land. The poor people were left without help, crying in the dark. The demon gradually grew stronger. Using a killer weapon, he spat out a horrible virus. The infected people crowded the hospital, causing many to lose their lives. To prevent the spread of the virus, people started wearing masks or even hiding in their houses. At this time, as if a stop button was pressed, the earth was empty everywhere. The merciful God, seeing such a miserable condition on earth, could not bear it. He started calling out to people. Because of this, people started remembering the bright treasure given by God, conscience, with a beautiful luster. When they are calm and begin to listen to their conscience, they realize if they follow the voice of their conscience and reflect on themselves daily, they can protect their hearts from anxiety. They found wisdom that helped them solve their problems. People started fixing their mistakes while doing good deeds to repent their past and spread good thoughts to each other. Eventually, more people are awakened, and the power of good thoughts grew. And the evil thoughts were forced to flee. At last, the dark spirits on the demon was forced to vanish due to the lack of the 5 poisons. The earth got a chance to rest, and all living creatures could once coexist in harmony, as beautiful as before. The children who had changed their thoughts are better than before. Greedy understood letting go and really let go. Angry learned forgiving and reclaimed compassion. Foolish understood cause and effect and developed wisdom. Arrogant practiced self-reflection and grew more humble. Doubtful learned being at ease and found happiness. These children finally found the purest and truest hearts and returned to heaven. With our heart, we choose between good and evil. Conscience enables us to distinguish between what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, and what is true and false. Deep down inside, we are all children from heaven. The 5 poisons lead to the corruption of the human heart, which is the cause of the aftermath we see today. The only solution is in the problem itself. Only conscience can save oneself. Let the soul return to its pure and beautiful homeland.
Thank you very much. Very nice video telling us that conscience is the answer to the poisons of the earth. And in this way, we are all ambassadors of conscience to cause the change in the Taiwanese society. Before concluding the webinar, I open the mic to everyone. If anyone wants to add anything or just say goodbye, bye-bye, whatever you want to say, feel free to do so.
Excuse me. I'm Athena, and I want to make a correction about my previous speech. And it is in 2020, there were 40.31 million cases of tax and fee enforcement in Taiwan, which is increased 7.53 times in just 20 years, not 10 years. And I want to make an update about my previous speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Athena. Marco?
Thank you all. I mean, it's always so important to learn from each other. And every webinar we have, I personally learn something important. So, and this is my best wish for all the panelists and for all the audience. Even every time learn something important about peace, truth, and justice.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
If there is no more greetings, I will greet everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Have a lovely day or evening or good night, and see you next time. Love and peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.